Hare Krishna, everybody. My name's Chaitananya Devadas, and I've been asked to speak a little bit about how I came to Krishna Consciousness. So, my background is I grew up in the UK, in Leeds, which is, as I say, it's in the UK, it's the north of England. And growing up, I didn't really we were nominally religious as much as like anybody is. I went to Christian school, a Church of England school as it happens. My father was a Catholic, but again, only nominally. People identify culturally as Christians, but they're not really Christians. And then at school we would learn about the Christian faith, and it never really suited me. I couldn't understand why. As such, it's just we'd be taught certain things, and I used to think, I don't believe that. There were certain things that were like hardwired into me when I was later preached to about Krishna consciousness. Things like reincarnation and eternal spirit soul. Those are the things that really rang true with me. I didn't know what those things were. I didn't know what reincarnation was or anything like that, but I just had the sense that these things were true. My mother was kind of new age spiritual. It kind of like the DIY, do it yourself, make your own religion that the new age is, has populated all over the world. She was a yoga instructor. And she had a book called Bhagavad Gita as it is. She'd been a bit of a hippie and stuff when she was younger, and that had come into the vernacular in the Western world when Srila Prabhupada came over. I should point out, you see, because I'm actually older than most devotees here because I'm nearly 45 years of age. So I've been around for a while. And obviously, my mother was a young person when the Hare Krishnas were coming over to the UK. So she had Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I just remember the book being there. I opened it and looked at the pictures, and I liked the blue guy in there. I didn't realize how important that blue guy would become in my life at that time. So it was there. It was, there was seeds being planted in my consciousness. And, I had a thirst for knowledge. I wanted to know what everything meant. I always knew something was wrong with the way that we were living. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but everything seemed so futile, I'd experienced loss and death and things from a very young age, and I was left with this sort of void inside of me, which was just like, what's the point in anything? If I buy new clothes, they're just going to wear out. I'm just going to wear out, Everything's futile. If we're all just marching forward towards death and nothing means anything, then literally nothing means anything. And it didn't sit right with me. As growing up, I was really very rebellious, and this sort of mindset that I had became nihilistic. And it led me down some very, very dark paths. Because I thought there was no point in anything, I began to experiment with drugs, and I really, really went the wrong way, unfortunately. I got into a lot of trouble, and I was, this is why I'm kind of reluctant sometimes to talk about myself, especially on camera and things, because, I've had quite a negative past, and it took me a long time to turn it around. Krishna Consciousness has been massively instrumental in that. So as I say, I got into the party scene and stuff, and I was misbehaving and all the rest of it. And then finally that led me to really, really hard drugs, and I became homeless. I was addicted to heroin and crack cocaine, and I was just, the Walking Dead, basically. I'd seen, because I was like on the street and things like that, I saw devotees. I was on the street from quite a young age, because I used to run away from home a lot. And on the streets of Leeds at the time, I used to see the devotees doing book distribution. And at the time, I was looking very young and things, and I think they felt sorry for me. So they gave me, food and things like that. They seemed very sort of concerned, like, you have nowhere to go, you need to, you need to get somebody involved, and, where are your parents and all the rest of it. One of them gave me a book, and it's the first Krishna Conscious book. I didn't read it straight away. I just took the book and, put it down like everybody else, and again, looked at the pictures, but didn't do anything with it. And it was Science of Self-Realization. When I started to get better, and I decided to clean my act up, as it were, I revisited that book. And I remember the words of Srila Prabhupada explaining the human condition, explaining our constitutional position. I was just like, it was like a light bulb moment just went off in my head. And I was like, this is it. This is what I believe, But there was a part of me, I have to say, which I was kind of disappointed that it was like the Hare Krishnas and stuff, because people either loved the Hare Krishnas or they hated the Hare Krishnas, and would make fun of the Hare Krishnas. And I was like, oh, it's Hare Krishna is this. I don't know, people, what will people think if I start acting like these guys? But, I stuck with it, and I went to programs, and it was a really long process for me, because there were things within Krishna consciousness, and because it's a lifestyle. Is Gaudiya Vaishnavism? It's to me it's more than a religion. Like I say, it's a way of life. But there were so many things within it, especially being of Western body, that are so alien to us. The way that we live this life. The etiquette, and there's so many things, So it takes a long time it certainly took a long time for me to learn. But now I'm a fully paid up member, as it were. And just from doing the basic things like chanting, imbibing the philosophy, hearing the philosophy, these really small things have changed my life beyond compare. If I was able to time travel, I don't think I'd recognize the person that I once was. Sometimes when I have memories of the life that I once had, it's like a different person. I don't regret as such, because I think regret is futile. Krishna consciousness is very much about living for today, what we can do today. There's nothing, I can make restitution for my past mistakes and things like that, where it is necessary. But it's who I am today, which is the most important thing. And yeah, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that Srila Prabhupada came to the Western world. I'm grateful that the devotees in the Western world carried on this tradition and passed it on to me. And nobody ever judged me, because like I say, I was on the street. I was like, really rough around the edges, vile little human being. And, these people greeted me with nothing but love, and that in that dark time, that it meant the world to me. It's even now. It's like I've been all over the world with Krishna consciousness, and everywhere I go where there are devotees, I'm instantly at home. I feel at home. My family used to be a small number of people. Now my family is the entire world. Wherever there is a temple, I know that I'll always be greeted warmly, and looked after with the best hospitality. And, for somebody like me who came from a very black and white sort of background, an us and them sort of mindset, that's been one of the most significant changes for me. So my mother, obviously, when I was younger and I started getting quite heavily into Krishna consciousness, it was somewhat of a shock to her to see me walking around with shaved head, shika, tilak, dhoti. You know, there's a tendency to think, you know, for these parents, oh dear, I think my son has joined a cult, you know. But when she met the devotees, I was lucky enough to serve under Dayananda Maharaj in the UK, and he's a sannyasi and a lovely man. You know, he cultivated me, and I'm eternally grateful to him. But when my mother met and spoke with these people and stuff, she was reassured, you know, oh no. And people explained to her, you know, this isn't a cult, this is a religion, you know, and it's, you know, it's like I said before, it's a way of life. So my mother now is if you're happy, I'm happy, you know, and I am happy. We're more happy than I have ever been in my life. My guru is His Holiness Bhaktivikas Maharaj. I came across his lectures online, and they just spoke to my soul. They really did. You know, challenging sometimes, a lot of the time for me, especially as a neophyte devotee and everything. But they gave me a sense of peace and direction that I'd never really had in my life. As I've said before, I didn't have many steady male role models in my life. And my Guru Maharaj has definitely been a positive male role model in my life. And that's just helped me leaps and bounds. My current status is I'm based in Manchester, again in the north of England. I'd say it's just over an hour away from Leeds. And I've lived in the temple there. I travel around and do various other things. But that is where I'm based, Manchester ISKCON. It's a small centre, you know, with a small ashram above it. But, you know, we're doing okay. We do book distribution. I take part in that. And, you know, sharing this message of Krishna consciousness with the people at large in Manchester. We do Western preaching programs and stuff. I'm also heavily involved in that. And prior to that, on and off, I've served His Holiness Dayananda Maharaj. Got to travel and see the world with him. And anytime Dayananda Maharaj asks me to serve or anything, I'm there like a shot, you know. Again, he was instrumental in my cultivation in Krishna consciousness. And I believe in paying my dues, as it were. And that's kind of like, that's where I am right now in my Krishna conscious life. Hare Krishna.